everyone, this is John. Welcome back to another episode of the Subcontinent. Through our episodes, we aim to raise important issues which are not generally covered by the mainstream media in the region of the former subcontinent. We will try to explain the issues, break down controversies surrounding it, and give you an insight into what experts and common people think.
In this exclusive episode for International Quds Day, we shall review how the people of the subcontinent remain united in protest against the heinous policies of the illegitimate Zionist regime, which has colonized the Palestinian land and continues to oppress its people.
Palestinians remain one of the most oppressed communities in the world. But governments of the world are silent. The major OIC countries are silent. European countries which call themselves torchbearers of freedom and liberty are silent, and here in the subcontinent, all countries except Pakistan, Bangladesh and Bhutan recognize Israel. Even though the US has vetoed more than 20 UN resolutions for Israel and bullied most governments into remaining silent, millions of people from all around the world, including the subcontinent, come out of their homes on International Quds Day to protest against the illegitimate regime for the crimes against the Palestinians.
The future of Muslims and non-Muslims across the subcontinent has always been intertwined with those of the Palestinians and the Quds Day, and can be a window of opportunity to unite all the Islamic community behind a beacon of hope, and leads the Ummah to subcontinental unity and even global unison.
This is the message to the Israel and the Americans to make an end to the innocent killing of the people and the innocent children of the Palestine as well as of the Yemen as well.
The fate of the Palestinian cause is especially linked not only to the Muslims but all peoples of the Asian plateau. The history of exploitation in the western and eastern parts of the continent share uncanny similarities, and the Quds Day can serve as the most opportune occasion to help unify the voiceless. Such epitome of unanimity among the Muslims, as well as all oppressed human beings, would hopefully ripple out across the subcontinent, throughout Asia and consequently all over the world. The reasons why Indian subcontinent can play a weighty role in better actualization of the Palestinian go deep in different dimensions, in addition to the Indian and Pakistani Muslims who have been supporting it for a long time, for obvious reasons. All of the myriads of ethno-linguistic and religious majorities and minorities of the region have also voiced some sort of support for it.
Why do millions of people all around the world, including the West, protest against the policies of the Zionist regime? The heinous crimes of Israel are not emotionally charged exaggerations based on bias. Israeli oppression is well documented. Only in 2014 alone, more than 2,300 Palestinians were killed, and so far, more than 65,000 Palestinian citizens are said to have been killed by the Israeli forces in total. Israel imposed a land, air and naval blockade on Gaza in 2007, constantly bombed the region including hospitals and schools there, and now almost 2 million people face a famine with no money or clean water.
The collective and personal subcontinental unconscious of almost all the inhabitants of this vast stretch of land has for long been scarred by comparable traumas. Since the early years of the 20th century, colonial powers have been masters of the so-called divide and rule dogma to prolong their rule. The partition of Palestine to create the Zionist entity in the midst of the 20th century, which occurred just 1 year after British India was partitioned to create Pakistan, is always seen as the legacy of British imperialism in South Asia. The minds of all the residents of the Greater India can sympathize with the pains that Palestinians feel as a result of the same policy of division, which is exacerbating disarray in the Islamic community to flare up the conflicts around the globe in order to avert attention from the current issues of the Muslim world. A wider look at the recent history of imperialism can reveal how the global hegemons are abusing their divide and rule policy. Reminding us the roots and similarities in today's world problems, the Quds Day is when we become mindful and alert that Palestine can be a key factor to enable the Muslims to stand behind each other for a greater cause, a global unity.
People united will never be defeated.
To learn more about the International Quds Day in the subcontinent, we have with us Mr. Feroz Mithi Borwala, who is an Indian activist. Sir, welcome to the show. It's very nice having you here on this special occasion. So, many believe that the Quds Day is a great unifying occasion for all those who stand up for justice across the subcontinent and the world. What do you think about that?
No, that undoubtedly it is the contribution of Imam Khomeini and the people of Iran that has brought this, the Quds Day as on the last Jummah, the last Friday of Ramzan. That has been the great political contribution. And the Quds Day is building up as a moment of not only uniting Muslims across the world, but we see more and more non-Muslims also joining those marches in various parts of the world. So that reaffirmation of our commitment to Quds, to Jerusalem, is the reminder, and the fact that we are marching in the hundreds of thousands and maybe more across the world, I think it's millions, is very, very important. So at the one hand is to unify Muslims, on the other hand is those who support the Palestinian struggle come together on that day. But again, the condition of the Muslim world is also quite disunited. So we've got a long way to go. Post the crisis from Libya to Syria to Yemen, all that we are seeing in the Muslim world, the continued tensions between Saudi and Iran and Turkey, and all these things are playing out right in front of our eyes. I think the Muslim world has not been so disunited and in a state of war for a long, long time actually. So, but Quds Day again is a time of unity for ordinary Muslims to think about all these issues, for political leaders, for social leaders, even for the ulama to think about all these leaders and bring us all together for the cause of Jerusalem, for the cause of Palestine.
Yes, and also the global media has also been somewhat united in terms of condemning the oppressive policies of the Zionist regime. Let's see how the global media has covered this issue, and then we can come back to the question and answer session.
Indian governments during the past 2 decades have deviated from the Nehruvian national consensus on the Palestine issue towards a subservient pro-Israeli line. Pakistan wants establishment of a viable, independent and the contiguous state of Palestine on the basis of internationally agreed parameters, the pre-1967 borders, and with Al-Quds al-Sharif, Jerusalem, as its capital. Since India normalized relations with Israel in 1992, the partnership has developed steadily as the two have a close defense, homeland security and intelligence relationship. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation does not have the courage to highlight the issue of Al-Quds and take pragmatic measures to solve the issue of Palestine. Pakistan says it would never have relations with Israel before the creation of an independent Palestinian state with Jerusalem Al-Quds as its capital.
Thank you, viewers, for staying with us. Thank you, Mr. Feroz, for being with us again. So, now on a state level, what do you think the governments of India and Pakistan can do to support the Palestinian cause?
As I've told you, the government of India under Narendra Modi has moved far to the right on practically every political, social and economic issue. On the issue of foreign policy, Narendra Modi is totally aligned with Benjamin Netanyahu. They both come from the same mindset, they both hate Muslims, they both hate Islam, and they're both blood brothers as far as this issue is concerned. So there is very little hope from the government of India, so to speak. The government of Pakistan also has its own problems, economic problems, social problems. Imran Khan, I believe, is trying to get that country out of the kind of religious extremism and fanaticism that has been the bane of Pakistan for the last 30, 40 years, ever since the Afghan jihad and even a little bit earlier under General Zia. So both these societies have both these nations have a lot of work to be done within. But at the same time, we need to work together to keep the imperial forces out of our countries across all of South Asia and build a unified movement for the good of the people of our countries, and going back to our roots of our freedom struggle, where we defeated the British, we stood with Palestine, remembering our history, remembering our traditions of our freedom struggle, of our independence struggle. It is not difficult. Our foundations are very strong, our roots are very strong. It's just a matter of getting our act together and working towards that larger goal.
On that note of getting back to the roots, can you elaborate more on that?
Essentially, what we as Indians or South Asians, be it Pakistan or Nepal, Sri Lanka, and the entire South Asian, Bangladesh and so on, we just need to go back to the foundations of our freedom struggle. As far as India is concerned, be it the great Mahatma Gandhi, or be it Jawaharlal Nehru, our first Prime Minister, be it Maulana Azad, be it Abdul Ghaffar Khan, be it Subhash Chandra Bose, Bhagat Singh, the great leaders of our freedom struggle. Even when they were fighting against the British, they all stood with Palestine. And that policy carried on until the late 80s, even till the early 90s. But then came the assassination of Indira Gandhi to Rajiv Gandhi, and that's when we began to move towards the American axis. Even the global order changed, the fall of the Soviet Union. And it was clear that our entire trajectory had moved towards the American imperial power and Israel. So we need to go to the roots of our freedom struggle, of our anti-colonial struggle, of our anti-Zionist understanding of the entire issue. And it's not difficult. Our foundations and our roots are strong. But at the same time, the the scenario in South Asia, the scenario in West Asia and across the world actually bodes a very, very difficult time for Palestine. It's very difficult right now. We've got to go through some major churning at the global level, at the West Asian level, at the South Asian level, for all of us to get our act back together for the Palestinians.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Feroz, for being with us on our show. It was really nice having you. Let's see what people have said online regarding the International Quds Day and the oppression of the Palestinians by the hands of the Zionist regime. And then we can continue with the show.
Junaid Ahmed criticizes the world for being silent in the face of oppression of Israelis in Palestine. Ether Khan believes that the world is under threat by these three dangerous ideologies: white nationalism, Zionism, and radical Hinduism. Regarding the recent novel coronavirus, Sarah Wilkinson mentions the fact that the Palestinians are in danger of both famine and COVID-19. Abdullah Ayaz Molani emotionally expresses his condolences to the oppressed Muslims of the world. Salman Obeida believes Palestine will be free regardless of the destruction and bombings.
Israel has now increased the occupation of the West Bank territory. Israeli settlers, supported by the illegitimate government and the Supreme Court of Israel, forced native Arab Muslims out of their homes before bulldozing their property with the help of the Israeli forces, only to build new settlements. They do this even though the United Nations, European Union, and the International Court of Justice recognize the occupation and ongoing Israeli settlements as illegal. Israel has been declared an apartheid regime by the UN and prominent international leaders and human rights organizations from all around the world.
Seeing Quds Day as the great unifier that it is can also help for better and more feasible solutions for other problems of the subcontinental Islamic population. Imagine what feats of human accomplishment might be possible if India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and even the rest of South Asia act as one. With that scope of support and cooperation, even the intractable issues of the Muslim world, including Kashmir or Rohingya, appear minuscule and may even have been resolved. The call for Palestinian freedom by the late father of the Islamic Revolution, Imam Khomeini, has been echoed throughout the subcontinent retrospectively and prospectively.
مسلمان ها امیدوارم که روز قدس را بزرگ بشمارند و در همه ممالک اسلامی در روز قدس در روز جمعه آخر ماه مبارک تظاهر کنند، مجالس داشته باشند، محافل داشته باشند، فریاد بزنند. وقتی 1 میلیارد جمعیت فریاد کرد، اسرائیل نمیتونه، از همون فریادش میترسه.
The father of the Indian nation has famously said Palestine belongs to the Palestinians in the same sense that England belongs to the English or France to the French, adding that Israelis have erred grievously in seeking to impose themselves on Palestine with the aid of America and Britain, and now with the aid of naked terrorism. Although people across the subcontinent's countries, particularly in Pakistan and India, turn out in massive numbers for the Quds Day demonstrations, their respective governments have not shown but a flimsy support through propaganda and platitudes. How can one champion the Palestinian cause and at the same time side with Israel and the United States?
Protesting for the rights of the oppressed people of Palestine is not just a duty. It is an automatic moral reaction of every person who has a conscience. A reaction which comes when we realize the horrible crimes which the illegitimate Zionist regime continues to commit. The Zionist regime, which illegitimately and illegally took control of Palestine with the help of the imperial superpowers, has expelled from their homes almost 5 million Palestinians who are now refugees around the world, while keeping the rest as hostages in their own lands, humiliating them, destroying their homes, shooting children, women, medical aid workers, and even handicapped people.
The International Quds Day provides a small window of opportunity for all the people to open their eyes and ears to the plight of Palestinians, who are victims of killings, displacement, desecration, and various forms of settlers and military attacks. People have been killed and are being killed every day in the hands of the Zionist Israeli regime and its allies. You can hardly find a Muslim family home without walls adorned by pictures of their martyred members across the region, and the number of such framed photos are increasing every single day. In the long string of previous annual Quds demos and the infinity of future Quds days that are to come, only one will be different. The Quds Day that we start celebrating the free Palestine and the entailing harmony that unites all the Islamic world.
Free, free Palestine! Free, free Palestine!
Each year, on the last Friday of Ramadan, the world has a chance to transcend Quds Day forever. History will judge how we contributed to the peace and justice among the living and breathing ordinary people, or peace at the graveyard, whether we created unison and beautiful harmony or elongated the silence of rooms whose walls cannot bear more faces.
To add more insight, we are now joined by a political analyst, Mr. Malik Ayub Sumbul. Mr. Sumbul, welcome to our show. So talking about the Palestinian cause, can you please tell us what the sentiment is in the subcontinent?
The Muslims in the subcontinent, they consider it very compulsory, and they think one of their most important obligation to concerned about the Palestinian Muslims when they see about the different kind of the Israeli aggression and the injustices towards the innocent Palestinians. So there is always a very strong voice that has been raised from the subcontinent Muslims, and they always support the Palestine cause, and they always have a very strong sentiments for the Palestinian Muslims.
All right, what kind of message do you think the Quds Day rallies are sending across the world?
Al-Quds Day is one of the major dedication and the day in which the Muslims around the world actually they pledge for the rights of the Palestinians, because if you see after the Balfour Declaration, so the majority of the Arab countries they have been compromising on the Palestine cause, and they are pushing behind this Palestine issue, because if you have details and read about the Balfour Declaration, so it's very clear that without the support of the Arab countries, it was not possible for the Israel to make a separate land and to occupy the Palestine. So this Quds Day actually is one of the day that is has been still giving a message to the whole world that the Muslims stand for the Palestinians and for Palestine.
Yes, and I think that the global media has also sort of underreported the oppression of the Palestinians. Let's look at how the media exactly covered the developments, and then we can continue with the question and answer session.
Taking advantage of tensions between Muslim countries, Israel wants to dominate the world by making Muslim states fight each other. Israel will give no importance, even Pakistan recognizes it, because Israel values India much more. India, Israel and America are all part of a troika. India has contributed $5 million in 2019 and pledged to contribute $5 million in 2020. India says its support and solidarity with the 5.5 million Palestine refugees remains strong and abiding. Indian NGOs have urged the government to pressure Israel to comply with international laws, UN resolutions, and end all forms of aggression against Al-Quds, Jerusalem, and its people immediately. India was the first non-Arab country to recognize the state of Palestine in 1988 and has consistently voted in favor of Palestine in UN resolutions over the past several decades.
Thank you for staying with us, and we welcome you back. Thank you, Mr. Malik, for staying with us as well. Now, we are hearing that the Quds Day is a great unifying occasion and a force for the Muslims and non-Muslims of the subcontinent to come together. What is your take on that?
I think the Muslims and the non-Muslims have a very strong consensus on this thing, that Palestine belongs to Palestinians. And Israel has just occupied and they killed innocent Palestinians. So the Muslims have the Muslims and the non-Muslims have a very strong consensus, and they are equally have sentiments and a say. So all the Muslims and the non-Muslims of the subcontinents are united on this point.
All right, some interesting views there. It was nice having you with us. Before ending the show, let's take a look at the cyberspace to see how the people have reacted, and then we'll say goodbye. Thank you.
Due to the lockdown restrictions, the tweet suggests the people to fly the Palestinian flag instead of the annual protesting in Quds Day. Referring to the Netanyahu statement, Emma Weigland explicitly calls the Israeli regime an apartheid. Susie S. encourages other figures to speak up for the oppressed Palestinians in Gaza and West Bank, as John Legend did.
With this, we end this episode. This episode was made possible by the hard work of our team, which works consistently to make sure that the show is as good as possible for you. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms, and thank you for helping us improve by giving us feedback online. See you same time, same day next week. Thanks for watching.